Chapter 133, Waterspouts and Dark Currents. Hermione put the small golden cup down on the stone lab counter with the smallest metallic click. Harry put the basilisk fang down next to it. "Last time I did this," Sirius said, from where he was casting spells on the walls, "I almost brought the house down. Destructive was an understatement." "When are you going to explain what we're doing?" asked Draco. "I said I'd show you what we were doing if you were helpful," said Hermione. "It's pretty self-explanatory once you see it," Harry said. "Who gets to do the honors?" "Let me," said Hermione. "I haven't had a chance to yet, and I'd rather leave the snake to Harry." "Snake?" asked Sirius. "Later," said Harry. "Go ahead, Hermione. Wands out, everyone." When Hermione stabbed the fang into the cup, the room went mad. Protko helped a little, but Sirius was the one of them who knew spells that kept the torrent of dark magic away from the three teenagers. When it was over, they had survived a waterspout and were all soaked to the bone and shell-shocked. "What in the name of Merlin was that?" said Draco, wet blonde hair plastered to his head, eyes wild. "That was one part of Voldemort," said Harry. "We're killing him a bit at a time. Welcome to the secret." "I don't suppose you know how many parts are out there," Sirius said tiredly, "because it could get pretty tiresome doing this over and over again." Harry and Hermione shared a wordless glance. "We have some idea," Harry said. "It's not going too badly, but we want to be sure he doesn't catch on too soon." "Hermione, did you?" "I asked Draco to transfigure replacements for the vault," Hermione confirmed. "That's how he argued himself into joining us here." Harry glared tiredly at Draco, who folded his arms and looked cool and composed. The jerk. "I still think Hogwarts should be the most logical place for him to hide things," Harry added. "But I searched that castle from top to bottom for a month and nothing." "Did you check the room of hidden things?" asked Draco. "The what?" "The room of requirement has a version that's full of lost things," Draco said. "I spent most of last year there." "Did you ever see a tiara?" Hermione asked urgently. "A silver and blue one." "I don't know," Draco said. "You know, if you told me you were looking for something Awikago." "Shut up, Draco," Harry said. "We'll deal with it." "How exactly?" "They'll be guarding the castle more tightly than ever now." Harry didn't know, and didn't like the idea of getting trapped there again. "One's enough for today," Hermione said firmly. "Everyone downstairs for chocolate." They all went downstairs for chocolate, to be joined by Draco's parents. Sirius distracted them from questions by talking loudly about his muggle girlfriend, and Harry loved Sirius a lot. "So Gringotts went smoothly?" Harry asked. Hermione and Draco glanced at each other. "More or less," Draco said. Harry gave the room a general glare. That didn't sound very convincing. "We got back all right, Harry," said Hermione. "Isn't that what counts?" "There may be a few people who are under the impression that you were at the bank today," Mrs. Malfoy told him. Given the possibilities of Polyjuice, it seemed a shame not to sow confusion. They were confusing, Harry. Dinner was interesting. Creature appeared to have slaughtered a number of lambs for the purpose of bringing his very best culinary achievement to the table. There seemed to be some sort of extremely polite Cold War going on between Draco and his parents. Sirius was reading at the table. Mr. Ollivander ate in the library. Hermione was quizzing Draco about classes, which did not seem to be relaxing either of them. "So," Harry tried, "talk to any of the goblins, Hermione." "I did, yes," she said, with a small smile. "I suppose next you want to arm the vermin," said Mr. Malfoy. "Actually," said Harry, "we couldn't we? Mr. Ollivander wants to make wands, and goblins and House Elviscanus wands." "Oh, Harry," Hermione said, perking up. "Do you think so?" "Harry," Sirius said, "I hate to agree with Lucius on anything. I really do hate it. Stop making me agree with him. But we'd lose a lot of moderate wizard support if we did anything like that." They'd think we were trying to bring back the Goblin Wars. It would be very easy to paint us as terrorists. I don't see why we shouldn't, Harry said firmly. If you've learned anything from this, Sirius said bitterly to his relatives, it's to not give Harry bright ideas. Sirius, Harry complained. If moderate wizards would object to something that's simple, maybe moderate wizards are wrong, Hermione said, and got up and left the table. Harry decided he desperately needed dessert to deal with his life. Mr. Potter, said Lucius Malfoy. Harry looked up from his book. Ned Stark really needed to consider listening at doors more often, and Mr. Malfoy sat back down at the table. The firelight made the lines of his face darker and harder than they might otherwise seem. Harry didn't pull his wand. It seemed rude, and Mr. Malfoy didn't have one. I should like to know your intentions towards my family. Right, well, what did Harry intend for Mr. Malfoy and family? What did he want for Draco? What had Dumbledore offered once upon a time? I'd like you all to go into hiding until the war is over, if that's all right with you. Stay out of things entirely. Under the circumstances, well, I don't trust you with a wand at my back, so I'd rather take you off the board if we're talking about chess. Being Ron's friend meant a lot of talking about chess. Draco thinks that you will involve him in your quest at your right hand. Harry considered this statement. Do you want me to involve him in my quest at my right hand? I have mixed feelings. You mean you aren't sure whether or not it's a ticket for a messy death? Mr. Malfoy smiled thinly. Such a way with words you have, Mr. Potter. I'll talk to Draco. Actually, I had a question for you. What was Riddle like before he died? Was he less, If this had been Draco, that blank look in his eyes would be veiled rage. The Dark Lord was less angry, Mr. Malfoy said in a distant, cold voice. He was more certain of his followers and his place in history. Many people betrayed him that he felt would hold true. He has ever taken things personally. Well, that sort of confirmed the idea that Voldemort was erratic and murderous in part because of splitting his soul so much, though it didn't explain why chatting with Harry would help. He was magnificent, Mr. Malfoy continued, unaware of Harry's thoughts. Perfect in his beliefs and with incredible clarity of purpose. I like a little ambiguity in my allies myself, Harry said, thinking about souls. People with real clarity of purpose seem to crush people without meaning to, seems to me. War requires sacrifice. He doesn't kill people because it's a sacrifice, though, Harry pointed out. He kills people because it usually solves the problem sooner or later after you kill enough people. You'd think he'd never heard of population problems. Which was channeling pure Hermione, of course. Harry was confused to find Mr. Malfoy smiling thinly. And what would be your solution, Mr. Potter? Kill him, Harry said promptly. Lock a lot of people up for a while, preferably without Dementors. Have someone take over the ministry until Draco and Hermione are old enough to run against each other for minister plausibly. Support whoever wins. For minister, was it? Draco doesn't have a very good impression of following people, Harry informed him. I don't think he'll like it long term. And good night, Mr. Potter. Talking to Slytherins always seemed to have a ton of undercurrents Harry didn't quite catch. Hopefully, he hadn't let a shark slip through somehow during this one. Chapter 134, Boys Fighting. Harry and Hermione included Draco and Sirius in their morning discussions about where to look next, where to find Nagini, and how to contact someone inside Hogwarts to search the room of requirement for a Horcrux. It didn't mean they came up with any very bright ideas over their morning strategy meeting, but it seemed to cheer them up somehow to be included in the planning. Sirius took Harry aside at lunchtime after running a few errands and moving Mr. Ollivander. Harry accepted the present of Polyjuice and tried out his second-best smile. You have to leave again, don't you? Prime Minister won't guard himself, Sirius said ruefully. I didn't exactly give notice I'd disappeared. They're probably worried. Harry would be fine, Harry was always fine. Look, Harry, promise me you won't stay here with the Malfoys. I've been doing my best to distract Lucius, poke him a bit to see how far I need to go before he snaps. But I don't trust him not to start thinking about angles once there's not another adult wizard in the house. He'll be thinking all he'd need to do was punch you in your sleep out the front door into the waiting arms of our Death Eater buddies and poof, instant favorite again. He's a snake, and not in the warm, fuzzy way the ones you talk to go along with. And Mrs. Malfoy. She'll follow her husband's lead. They'll both be thinking they can get out of this with all their tokens, and their cake too, if they just play it right. You're just too tempting, Harry. Leave them here to entertain Creature. Heaven knows he could use something to do and go to one of the other safe houses. Try one with a Weasley, they might have news of your Ron. Harry tried to keep his thoughts off his face. Yeah, Sirius said with a smirk. I thought that was why you weren't rushing off to get into your next fight. If we don't stay here, Harry said reluctantly, our next agreed meet-up point isn't until Christmas. You can't move the Malfoys, Sirius said, lowering his voice. We've already compromised one Fidelius charm with them. We can't lose any more. Harry sighed. Hermione and I will leave today, he promised. Good, Sirius said, clapping him on the shoulder. Keep in touch, or I'll schedule you for etiquette lessons with Creature until you're 20. The best threat is an effective threat, Sirius caroled, and the rest of the time before he was out the door to fight, the good fight was taken up by bickering. Anyway, Harry concluded his awkward lunchtime welcome to my house speech. I hope you'll all have a very enjoyable stay, and I'll try to make sure the war doesn't drag on too long. If you think I went through all that trouble just to hide, while you take all the glory, Potter, you have another thing coming, Draco said, with a venomous glare. It's not up to you, is it? And who else would it be up to? Well, me. You'd not get to tell me to stay out of this fight. Not a chance. Harry refrained from saying, you don't even like fighting, in front of Draco's parents. It's just, Hermione and I are used to working together, Harry tried. Are you calling me Alliability? Sure, yeah. Anything to convince Draco to stay safely out of the way of all the people trying to kill him. As if I couldn't make you crawl on your knees and beg for mercy, Draco said, with a twisted smile. You couldn't, Harry said lazily. Would you like to bet? I would, yeah. I win. You stop arguing with me at every turn or bargaining for a better deal every time we ask you to do something helpful. If you win, I come with you, Draco said. Fine, said Harry, adjusting his glasses and wishing Draco wasn't such a pain in the neck. Harry, asked Hermione. Stay out of it, Granger, Draco half snarled. The duel went something like this. Once they'd cleared out the furniture that was in the way of using the largest room, the kitchen. Draco and Harry drew their wands, bowed to each other, and tried to curse each other's skin off. The first spells met and rebounded, and Harry dodged left while Draco dodged right. One spell turned a teapot into a potted geranium, while the other explosively disarmed a container of kitchen spoons. Say, Draco, Harry called, would you say that you're experiencing mood swings from overuse of dark magic? Pratigo. Serpensoria, who taught you to talk during duels? Excuse me, could you please attack the man who just summoned you? Harry hissed at the attractive black adder and leaped upwards as Draco's follow-up spell flashed red through the space he'd just been standing, letting his wordless hover charm catch him for one steady moment as he enjoyed Draco's widening eyes. Expelliarmus, he bellowed, and caught Draco's wand as he fell back to the ground, landing on one knee, one wand in each hand. What, Draco said flatly, was that? Something I've been working on, Harry said innocently, twirling Draco's wand. You've been working on flying. Well, hopping, Harry said, or falling rather slowly. Give me my wand back. That's not very polite. I did win. Give me my one back, Potter. Say please. Draco ground his teeth. Harry waited. Please may I have my wand, Harry? Sure, Harry said easily and handed it over. All yours. At which point Draco hit him in the face, and they spent an undignified few minutes wrestling. No further wands changed hands. If you're done being boys, asked Hermione, checking something in her little beaded bag. Harry grinned at her, rubbing at his split lip. We're done. Then we'd all better go, hadn't we? What do you mean all? Harry said, narrowing his eyes at her. We can't leave Draco here, she said matter-of-factly. I was going to tell you, but you both seemed very enthusiastic, so I thought I'd tell you afterwards. His parents can't be trusted with secrets Draco knows, so he needs to come with us. Oh, said Harry, and felt a little stupid, but still triumphant. Ha, said Draco, who seemed to feel this meant was triumphant. I still won, Harry muttered. Only because you're absurd, and being absurd is slightly surprising, Draco said loftily. I shall win next time. And that was how Draco joined their adventure for good and all. There was also a minor detail about wand ownership, but that probably won't be important later. Chapter 135, A Daring Raid on Tesco's. They set up camp in a small grove of trees near a small town, cast their defensive enchantments, and settled in for the afternoon. What now? Draco asked, eyeing their new forest home without favor. Said Harry, who had yet to properly put together a plan. Well, Hermione's working on the runic symbols in the book Dumbledore left her. We generally work on gathering food and practicing spells, and planning. If I plan with you any more today, we'll be having another duel, and it will be less friendly, Draco said. I'm going to go hunt if we've no food. I'm sure I can catch us something reasonable. Harry waved him off to this task, and dug out his charms syllabus to half-heartedly practice the Protean charm for 20 minutes before going back to his book, where Deanery's was really in a tight spot. A white cat rolled into camp, frantically wrestling a rabbit slightly larger than itself. The rabbit was pounding at the cat with its large hind feet, and they went end over end in a ball of fur and fury. Harry choked. He should probably help, somehow. No spell he could cast wouldn't catch both rabbit and cat, though. The cat ceased gnawing fiercely on the rabbit's ear and tore itself away, shifting into a bloodied and snarling Draco, who drew his wand and leveled it at the fleeing rabbit. Harry grabbed his wrist, and Draco paused, looking at him blankly. Let's skip the dark curses, Harry said, and didn't say any of the other things bubbling up inside him. It's a rabbit, Harry, Draco said slowly. It's not even illegal for use on livestock. Just don't. Let go of my wrist, Harry. Harry let go of his wrist. Fine, Draco said, and put his wand away. I'll get fish. You can figure out what to do with fish that will taste reasonably edible, since you're not doing anything more useful. Harry glanced rather guiltily at his book, and smothered the impulse to say it was teaching him about politics and deception and things. I'll see about some sort of stew, Harry said instead. Hard to go wrong with stew. And Harry did have some ginger and burdock root, even if he'd been meaning to use them in potions, not in food. The resulting fish stew, flavored with some watercress Harry had nearly frozen retrieving from a stream, was nothing to write home about. It was, however, hot and filling, and no one complained. Acceptable, was Draco's comment, but you should go shopping tomorrow so you can do better next time. Not your house elf, Draco, was Harry's comment. Some people are natural hunters, and some people are natural cooks, Draco said loftily. I'm going hunting in the shops tomorrow, Harry said, for tea. If you can't be civil, I shall use you to practice my fire starting, Hermione said, not looking up from her book. Do try to go early so there's some for breakfast, Draco suggested. Good idea, thanks. This set the tone for the next weeks, which were lazy in their way as autumn came tumbling along, bring with it bad, whether compounded by the presence of dementors in habituated areas. They started keeping one patroness active when they could spare the time, either Hermione's otter, Harry's stag, or Draco's dove. Harry, who had never seen Draco's patroness before, steadfastly fought the urge to call it cute when it cooed or preened Draco's hair. 3 hours in the mornings were devoted to the seventh-year curriculum at Hogwarts, mostly to fill the time in defense and charms and transfiguration. Harry continued to do the cooking, while Draco took his restless energy out on the local wildlife wherever they roamed. Harry would treasure the mental image of the lanky teenage fluffball of a cat, dragging a fully grown dead quail into camp one foggy evening on the moors for a very long time. After their fourth attempt at shopping was curtailed by dementors, Harry did bring up his question about them. How many dementors can there be left in Azkaban with all of the ones out here? He asked Hermione, who knew history. They do breed, she said doubtfully, and there were supposed to be at least 1,000 there to guard the prisoners in the first place. Still, unless they breed exponentially, I suppose there wouldn't be quite so many there as there were before. I'm more worried about the ones out here, Draco said. We're not going to do anyone any good if we starve to death. We're not starving to death, said Harry, who did not understand the problem. Only slowly, Draco said dryly. There's really no way around it. We're going to lead a daring raid on a Muggle supermarket. There is a way around it, said Harry. We work with what we have and we don't complain. Right, Hermione? Hermione looked faintly guilty. Harry sagged, seeing this evidence of his not supporting his troops properly. Of course, Harry, she said in tones that convinced no one. Better safe than sorry. Which was how Harry and Draco led a midnight raid on a Tesco's, Patroni lighting their way. Talking about it as a raid or not, Harry hadn't actually expected to be swarmed by dementors and then by a motley selection of Voldemort's thugs just for daring to go to the Muggle grocery store, nor to end up back-to-back with Draco as Draco turned people into frogs and Harry stunned them. Harry leaned against the side of the grocery store and eyed his broken jars of jam and crushed grapes. Why frogs? He asked Draco, who was collecting their non-crushed 2 bags of groceries. Tradition, Draco said shortly, and I like the way frogs taste. Harry blinked up at the starry night sky and wondered how this was his life. Reckon they'll have reinforcements coming, he asked Draco. I'd like to get another jar of jam. I don't know exactly how snatchers work, Draco said, but probably not. Harry and Draco went back for another round of groceries. It turned out snatchers did send second rounds of men if the first round of 8 didn't come back within 20 minutes. This time Fenrir Greyback sent himself, and battle was joined and fled from just outside town. Harry shrunk his groceries frantically, stuffed them in a pocket, and ran. Draco, running next to him, said, "This would be a good time to know how to fly." This would be a good time to know how to turn a person into stone, Harry threw back. Well, I'm sorry, can't work out a new spell instantaneously. So am I, hissed Harry, and dragged Draco by the hand through a gap in the hedgerows into the woods. We're nowhere near camp, right? He continued in a whisper. No need to lead this particular idiocy to Hermione's doorstep. Greyback knows my scent, Draco said, in what Harry identified as muffled terror. We can't just leave and come back later, they won't stop. Right, Harry said, and with muffled spells grabbed 2 invisibility crackers, casting around frantically for the right sort of tree to make a stand in. He can smell us, Draco hissed. And hear you, sweet Draco, called a loud voice from the darkness, though at least it sounded relatively far away. Your master is angry. He'll be so pleased with me for finding you. Harry rolled his eyes. The expression lost in the darkness of the forest grabbed Draco's hand, held his wand level in his hand, and thought firmly up. They shot into the air, and Harry grabbed a branch with his free hand and used Draco's moment of weightlessness to heave him up onto it. Draco made only one surprised hiss, and then they were both standing on the branch of a grand old hemlock. Harry handed over an invisibility cookie, and they ate them in silent unison. Long, dark minutes sped by. Greyback and 3 minions paused at the base of the tree. "Did any of you hear disapparation?" Greyback demanded. "No, sir," squeaked one. "Spread out. I want to know if they're still here," he growled. Harry squeezed Draco's shoulder in silent warning and took aim at the largest of the dark shapes he could faintly see in the center of the clearing. Couldn't be worse than trying to catch a snitch in the rain, right? Spell light flared. Chapter 136. Harry Plays Moral Compass. The thing Harry had noticed in the earlier confrontation with the Snatchers was that most of them moved slowly. They talked to each other, they took time to aim, often they paused to grandstand or say their spells aloud. It was nothing like fighting Draco or the helpless feeling that came from facing Professor Snape across a battlefield, reading every move ahead of time and moving before you finished thinking. Harry didn't think he and Draco had realized they were focusing on reflexes above spellcasting versatility, but the end result was this. He and Draco were very, very fast with a very limited number of spells. Seeker reflexes. They hit 3 of their targets with stunners before their targets realized what was happening, felling 2 out of the 3. The last small shape, not targeted, started yelling, and it turned out you needed more than 1 stunner to fell Fenrir Greyback. A sizzling green spell missed them by inches. "Right," Harry said. "You shoot, I'll drive." "What? Stop talking in absurd muggle idioms," Draco said, even as Harry grabbed his hand, held his wand carefully, and leaped for the tree across the clearing. If it had been daylight, they would be dead, Harry suspected, or captured, which presumably would be worse. But wolves are not well known for their eyesight or skill with avian prey, and Harry was very used to thinking in 3 dimensions. It wasn't that his aim with a leap was very good. But once Harry was in the air under the influence of a hover charm, it was sheer instinct to shift his weight to bring him to the target he wanted. Draco took this opportunity to scream shrilly and blanket the clearing with spells in a wild red flurry that left Harry blinking spots out of his eyes. "Draco," he complained, when no one shot at them for long moments. "Never do that again. We are going to master legimancy, so that your absurd plants can be conveyed in time for me to know what miralize you." "It wasn't an absurd plan," Harry countered, leaning against the trunk of the pine tree and trying to look like it had been a plan at all. "Let's imitate squirrels," Draco hissed. "Squirrels never get eaten by wolves, no. Squirrels are very long-lived creatures. Yelling might not be the best plan right now. I do not care. I would love Asomio and I could curse right now without hurting anyone's precious feelings." "I meant, be quieter, Draco." "You're very calm," Draco observed more quietly. Harry thought about this. They weren't actually that scary. Fenrir Greyback is very scary, and probably going to wake up soon. "Oh, right, let's go down then." "How about Wedunt?" Draco hissed. "You really should trust me more." "I trust you fine. I don't trust your ability to fly, because you can't fly." "I fly fin. I just need a medium for the spell, and I'm not sure a wand is the best thing. I'm thinking about strapping tiny broomsticks to my shoes." "You have no respect for tradition or magical woodworking and let go of me." As Harry had suspected, strapping tiny broomsticks to his shoes as a mental image had sufficiently distracted Draco from Harry grabbing him and tossing them both off the tree branch they'd been perched on. Draco screamed manfully on the way down. "In martial arts movies," Harry said helpfully as they landed in a heap, "you're supposed to scream like that to embrace your inner warrior. HNG, kill you, present your body to the Dark Lord." "That would be a nice present," Harry admitted, and admitted privately to himself that he was not so much calm as putting his entire existence through some sort of filter in order to cope. The way he tried to filter Professor Snape's particularly snide remarks and Voldemort murdering people in front of him. There was a sound from the darkness, and suddenly things became rather busy again for a while. They stood over the stunned bodies of Greyback and his snatchers and felt awkward. Harry adjusted his glasses. "He's going to wake up, track us down, and murder us," Draco said. "And we're not going to do a thing about it, are we? If my father were here, he'd just kill him. If your father were here, we'd probably have other problems." Draco was silent. "You're right, okay," Harry said, and ran a hand through his hair. "He's probably going to go off and hurt kids and murder people who go to Tesco's at night and whatever else he does. He's the one who, well, Professor Lupin. I liked him. He was fair. You got him sacked because you feared for your life. I'm a complicated creature. You're an arsehole." Draco agreed. "We should still kill him. Even if the rest of them aren't much, he's dangerous. You want to fight him again." Harry didn't want to fight Greyback again. They'd thought they'd gotten him with the second round of stunners, only to have another group of snatchers show up and try to enervate their comrades, and Harry was shaky and sweating and exhausted. He wished he was in bed, not trying to talk himself into murdering someone. Or out of murdering someone. He wasn't honestly sure. "I'll do it," Draco said firmly. "It would probably give you nightmares or something ridiculous." Harry thought very quickly as Draco raised his wand. "Wait," he said, and he was pleased when Draco actually waited. "You said that spell to turn things to stone was almost ready for humans, but you thought it might be fatal. How easy would it be for someone to reverse?" "Not very, not unless they got Professor McGonagall to consult. Her spells to reinforce statues are unique." Harry thought about Professor McGonagall's giant chess set and took a moment to consider how you got from that to the idea tartan someone into a giant, well, chess piece. It took a certain kind of mind, that was for sure. "I think that this would be a good opportunity to test it. When the war's over, you can, defrost him, and he can stand trial. Or I could turn his organs into stone at a different pace than the rest of him and kill him horribly. I've had some very unfortunate mice. He's a werewolf, he's sturdy." And Harry didn't know what else he could say that would keep Draco from committing murder, since Harry had only a passing idea what he would say. "Don't murder the evil man who was trying to kill us and attacks kids, because I said so." "Wish me luck," Draco murmured, "and give me some light." "Lumos," Harry murmured, and the clearing sprang into abrupt illumination, trampled grass and scattered bodies, shadows sharp-edged and stark beneath the pines. Draco took a deep breath and slashed his wand sharply at Greyback's prone form. "Lapicifors petrificare," he barked. It seemed almost as if nothing had changed, until Harry realized that he was used to night vision, and Greyback shouldn't be shades of grey and white under the light of his spell. Granite skin, white stone clothes, hair an odd pink color. "Well," Harry said. "I think it went well," Draco said. "What was that last part?" "The first part was just transfiguration. Petrification, like the basilisk. It means it qualifies as a dark curse." Draco smiled at him, like a snake. "Give me a few moments to add the reinforcement spells, so no one can break him easily," Draco added. Harry, who knew a lost cause when he talked to someone who'd been coming up with spells to imitate a basilisk, as if there weren't better role models, decided to check on the groceries he'd hastily stuffed into his pockets. Well, the eggs were done for, that was for sure. This was going to be a mesto clean-up. "Come on," Harry said. "Hermione might not be awake yet if we head back now, and we need to move before another batch shows up." "You two have been fighting, haven't you?" was the first thing Hermione said when she woke up to them arguing over who should sleep and who should have the watch for the rest of the night. "What are you talking about?" Harry said, resisting the urge to confess everything immediately. "I don't understand why you have to do this," she said waspishly. As if we don't have enough enemies out there, you have to spend your time on silly duels. Oh, Harry said, grabbing this lifeline. Ah, sorry, Hermione. We got carried away, I guess. Hermione was quite unimpressed, but at least she wasn't terrified about having two teams of snatchers on their trail. It was easy enough, Takajula suggested them move to another location as dawn approached. Or was it that he didn't want to talk to her about what they'd done to Greyback? As he watched Draco eat an apple in apparent complete tranquility, Harry couldn't help but wish he could talk to Professor Snape about it. Professor Snape had a talent for cutting through to the heart of the issue, whatever it was, in as few words as possible. Harry just wasn't sure what Professor Snape would think of solving problems by experimentally turning people to stone. Chapter 137. Voldemort Makes an Offer. Harry woke to a dream of a library the next night, behind Voldemort's eyes. Hello, Harry, did anything unusual happen last night? Harry decided the better part of valor was silence, like a mouse. Lord Voldemort is displeased, hissed the high, cold voice, and Harry's occlumency barriers, his wings of fire, were suddenly swamped in a storm of hissing liquid. Was that visualized snake venom? For a moment in an age, Harry could feel and hear nothing. He wasn't even certain he existed, but this attack was an attack on Draco, and he loved Draco, and he held on to that love, wrapping it around everything that Voldemort wanted to see. Harry loved Draco, which was stupid, actually. When had he decided he even liked the giant Git? Were they even friends? Love was a pretty strong word for being willing to die for someone. Or maybe it wasn't strong enough. Voldemort's scream of anger and pain was closer to an animal snarl than anything human, as reality came back into being around them, fire and purple liquid and roiling smoke disappearing from Harry's conscious mind. I don't get this cross with you when you kill people, Harry said, just because it was the first thing that came to mind. Lord Voldemort, the man hissed, does not tolerate thieves. Harry thought of a little box of treasures in an old wardrobe, stolen from fellow orphans. Have you considered not counting people as things? Harry asked, because it seemed a relevant question. All this got was a very rude hiss. I'm a Parselmouth, you know. One of many things about you that frustrates me, Harry. Be silent, unless you wish me to lose my temper. Harry considered the merits of Voldemort losing his temper, and considered whether or not he had the energy to have someone else possibly murdered because of him. Can we talk since I'm here, not about the war? Voldemort was silent for long enough. Harry thought he'd get kicked out of the dream pretty quickly. Go on, Voldemort thought, at length. How'd you decide to kill the first person you killed? Do you know who that was? Either your father or Myrtle, Harry thought. Dumbledore told me. Voldemort was silent. Something about knowing your enemy, I think. Harry continued into the chilly silence. The man was an easy decision, Voldemort thought suddenly. Everything I detested about the world wrapped up in one package. Rather, I expect, like you felt last night. Did it make you feel powerful, Harry? Harry did not know why he thought asking advice from Voldemort about murdering people had been a good idea. Maybe it was just that Voldemort was the resident expert in murdering people. Myrtle, on the other hand, was an accident. Voldemort continued, almost gently. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was a complete waste of air. It was not as if anyone would miss her, but still, I did have second thoughts about it. I wondered if I could have done something different. Harry winced internally. A great many people are going to die in this war, Harry, unless you stop it, continued that quiet murmur. You are their symbol, whether you like it or not. Come to me and surrender, and your death will be quick and entirely painless. Perhaps, like Myrtle, you will even leave a ghost. The war will end, and your friends and remaining family will be spared. Wouldn't that be nice, Harry? You must be tired. In Harry's moment of shock and inattention, Voldemort's mind struck, grabbing at the memories topmost in Harry's mind. Draco, standing still and fierce over Greyback's stone nut corpse. Serious, furious, demanding Harry keep in touch. Green light and Dumbledore falling from the tower, with the dark mark glowing overhead, and Snape's furious snarl. Harry's occlumency barriers snapped back into place, and he took a moment to recite the list of ingredients of Polyjuice. Talking to Voldemort was the worst idea in Thule. He should really wake up now, once he got his breath. What a beautiful memory, Harry, Voldemort crooned. Thank you very much. I didn't give it to you on purpose. Nonetheless, I shall treasure it. I'm waking up now. What will you do now, Harry? Keep running, Harry said, because that was obvious. I'm not a ghost yet. I believe I shall research how to ensure a ghost is created, Voldemort thought cheerfully. I should so hate to lose the pleasure of your company after I kill you. Thanks, Harry thought sarcastically. Don't be cross. Harry, would you like a reward for being cooperative? You don't have anything I want. On the contrary, I believe I have something you want very much. They got up from their armchair by the fire and walked purposefully out into the corridor of Malfoy Manor. They went down a hallway, up a flight of stairs, and through an ornate door. Professor Snape looked up from a book, looking tired, hair mussed. My lord. Voldemort took another chair in the sitting room and said, as if continuing a conversation, a potion consisting of moonwater, pennyroyal, unicorn hair, and tears as the main ingredients, perhaps with blood to seal the bargain. Thoughts? I do not see what the point of such a potion would be, my lord, Professor Snape said, attention seeming to focus for the first time. An antidote. Ah, Professor Snape looked into the distance. It would require experimentation, and the idea is probably useless. Considering the potential creator, this does not surprise us, Voldemort murmured, and prompted Harry internally, questions. It was a very disconcerting half an hour, letting Voldemort and Professor Snape tear his ideas apart, but a spark seemed to light in Professor Snape's eyes by the middle of it, and that kept Harry attentive. Attentive and quietly furious, and oddly tempted. By the end of the half an hour, Harry had a new series of experiments planned, and Voldemort and Professor Snape had been diverted to another topic of conversation. Have you seen her today, my lord? You overstep, Severus. My indulgence does not extend too far. Snape bowed his head. My apologies, my lord. Voldemort seemed to pause, considering. Good night, Harry, he thought, and Harry's dream ended, as if cut off with a knife. However she was, Harry rather thought Voldemort didn't want Harry witnessing the discussion. Chapter 138. Winter is coming. The weather grew colder and colder. They did not dare remain in any area too long, so rather than staying in the south of England, where a hard ground frost was the worst of their worries, they continued to meander up and down the country, braving a mountainside where sleet pounded the tent, a wide, flat marsh where the tent was flooded with chill water, and a tiny island in the middle of a Scottish loch where snow half buried the tent in the night. Ron had not been the most peaceful of companions to run away with, having had a family to worry about and being used to such strangenesses as 3 full meals a day, but Draco was definitely worse. Hermione engaged him in explaining parts of the Hogwarts 7th year that she hadn't been able to understand from the textbooks and curriculum, which made him smug. She then proceeded to see Harry practicing his silent hover charm leaps and master it in 15 minutes of casual study before declaring it a waste of her time, which made Draco both competitive and furious. It made Harry competitive, too, but he knew how to have a competition. He didn't spit insults or sulk. He just practiced until he fell down and hit his head and made Draco laugh at him. So all was really well, that ended well, right? Harry attempted to explain all of this to Sirius one evening, having taken a quiet moment to himself to escape their semi-flooded tent and find himself a rock in the bog to sit on. Harry added, bogs are slushy when half frozen, to his long mental list of things that other people probably did not know that were unpleasant. "You guys making any progress?" Sirius asked, sounding tired, which made Harry feel abruptly guilty. He wasn't the only one in danger or uncomfortable after all. "Some," he hedged. "We're trying not to rush into anything." "Don't try that," said Sirius. "Just try to remember to call me so I can come rushing with you." Harry abruptly understood exactly why Sirius had been the best friend his father could have had. "I really miss Ron," he confessed. "Ron always comes rushing into danger with me, no matter what. He never says I should call a teacher or anything. He just comes with me and fights with me, and I worry about him. Have you heard anything?" "Not so much," Sirius admitted. "The Order isn't exactly keeping up with their letters right now." "What about Remus?" "Well," Sirius said, "funny story that." Which is how Harry found out he was a god brother, and also that Remus was quite capable of being dead calm in a fight and entirely terrified of happiness. "He's always been like that," Sirius said thoughtfully as snow dripped off Harry's nose. "Never complained a whit about pain, but had the hardest time believing he had actual friends. Made me want to bite people." "Did you?" "Nah, James and I just pranked M." A little butterfly in Harry's chest fluttered its wings as he thought about his dad pranking people on Remus' behalf. It was nice, having these little fragile connections with his parents, loving the same people, finding the same things important, fighting the same war. "Sirius, I've been having these dreams." And haltingly, Harry explained. About Voldemort and the threat of murdered children, about the way Voldemort's mood would shift from murderous to friendly in the span of seconds, about friendly offers to turn him into a ghost, and how Harry really, truly didn't know what was going on with Professor Snape, except that he was in trouble. "Harry," Sirius said, after he'd asked questions and ferreted out strategic information and all the things a responsible soldier had to do, "you know what I'm going to say next." "I shouldn't talk to him," Harry said heavily. "No, no, Harry. None of this is your fault. Nothing does is your fault. No matter what you do, no matter what he says, no matter how he worms his way into your head and makes you doubt yourself. He's the crazy bastard that murdered Lily and James, and you're a good kid with too much weight on his shoulders. Don't let him give you any more. And next time he's whispering at you, tell him Sirius Black says he's full of shit," Sirius added in such a matter-of-fact tone of voice that Harry burst out laughing, startling a couple birds into sullen flight. Harry couldn't stop laughing for a while, for a long while. "Okay, I've kept you up long enough," Sirius said after Harry had quieted down. "Talk to you in a few days. Password will be Glitter Wars. By the way, was that you that got the Snatchers all in a tizzy? The radio was talking about it." "We ran into Greyback," Harry admitted. "Good for you, kid. A few less people are being shipped off to Azkaban tonight because of that." There was a brief interlude while Sirius explained about Rebel Radio, Snatchers, and Azkaban's recent influx of residents. "I'm glad we ran into him then," Harry said sturdily. "Every little bit helps, right?" "Right," Sirius agreed. "But stay focused, huh?" "Oh, I am." Voldemort had a focusing effect on the mind. "Night, Harry." "Night, Sirius." There were light moments, too. "Harry, it's rosemary. You don't need rosemary for any of the potions you're brewing," said Hermione, snatching it from his hands. "I could need rosemary. This chicken recipe needs rosemary now. How many potions recipes need rosemary?" Hermione gave him a look. Harry did not win the argument. "Harry," purred Draco, "wheeze their hair in my soup." "Harry," scolded Hermione, "you can't test potions on people without asking first whether talked about this." "I wasn't, I." Harry absolutely had been. "How would you like it if I experimented on you, Potter?" Draco asked, holding up a tiny stone mouse and waggling it at Harry. Harry glared at Draco and the mouse equally. "I asked you to stop experimenting on the mice." And I told you not to be ridiculous. This's ridiculous. Draco, can I test potions on you? But, Draco, Harry did not win that argument either. Chapter 139, Godric's Hollow. It was nearly Christmas when Hermione discovered Grindwald's mark, tucked away in her copy of Tales of Beedle the Bard. Christmas had been their agreed-upon day to meet Ron at Godric's Hollow, though Harry wanted to go a day early to visit his parents and Bathilda Bagshot. Once they had Ron, they would be on the move again, and probably plotting how to break into Hogwarts once more. Harry's potion experimenting progress was hampered mostly by his lack of test subject, once Draco had caught on, and by his limited supply of unicorn hair and different kinds of blood. His own blood seemed to have the best effect, the day he'd badgered Draco into trying his best guess. Draco had been more interested in stealing one of Hermione's books on alchemy that day than continuing his experiments with stone mice. The next day, however, Draco appeared to steel himself before continuing his own spell research, and Harry hadn't been too sad to stop feeding Draco potions. The dark effect, whatever you called it, seemed to have a cushioning effect on the mind in regards to horrors like exploding mice. Harry thought perhaps, sometimes, he could use a cushioning effect on his own mind, but then he thought about Voldemort and desisted in this line of reasoning. Harry had been surprised that Draco didn't push to return to check on his parents, but Draco had shrugged in complete unconcern. They'll be happy enough once I'm a war hero. And so they came to Christmas and Godric's Hollow. In another lifetime, Harry had never had a home to call truly his own, a family to have awkward holidays with. He wasn't able to talk to Sirius about his parents as Christmas rolled around, or call up memories of dinners with Dudley and Sirius talking about bands. Sirius never told him the tale of how he and James decided it was time to stop playing pranks and start really joining the war. In this lifetime, Godric's Hollow meant Ron, a chance to learn about Dumbledore, a chance to say goodbye and hello, and wasn't there a song about that, to his parents? Harry wondered, as he drank his polyjuice, if it really was addictive. Hermione and Draco were quiet during his part of the trip to Godric's Hollow, allowing Harry space to think. Perhaps too much space, he thought dryly as he brooded and looked at gravestones. Ron would have been talking nervously, and it would have been really peaceful knowing someone else was nervous. He looked at the ruined house his parents had lived in and thought about what Sirius would think of this place. He'd like the sign, but would he ever come here? No, Harry thought, not and see the signs of his worst failure. This was something Harry could never share with him. It tore his thoughts uncomfortably close to something he'd been managing to avoid thinking about, Snape's part in his parents' murder. They'd never had a chance to talk about it, and that was certainly not a moment Harry was going to ask Voldemort to mediate. Harry had found out, and then Dumbledore had died, and everything had cascaded into this horrible, inevitable flood of carefully planned events. Dumbledore not even needing to Bilivito carefully orchestrate events in Harry's life. In a way, it was reassuring that Dumbledore really had been on the side of good. What was that line from Lord of the Rings that Harry had read so many years ago? Someone evil would seem fairer and feel fouler. Voldemort certainly could seem very fair, very reasonable, very righteous whenever he wanted to, even as he was suggesting you kill yourself or murder kittens or something. Dumbledore mostly seemed crazy, secretive, and somewhat annoying. Merlin, Harry missed the old coot. And then Harry's musings were interrupted by a muffled old woman who invited them back to her house. He and Hermione engaged her in conversation, if it could be called that, with Draco hanging back as lookout, as agreed. Bathilda Bagshot did not inspire confidence. Harry went upstairs with her at her request, distracted by the picture of the merry-faced thief. The stairs were steep and narrow. Harry was half tempted to place his hands on stout Bathilda's backside to ensure that she did not topple over backward on top of him, which seemed only too likely. Slowly, wheezing a little, she climbed to the upper landing, turned immediately right, and led him into a low-ceilinged bedroom. It was pitch black and smelled horrible. Harry had just made out a chamber pot protruding from under the bed before Bathilda closed the door, and even that was swallowed by the darkness. "Lumos," said Harry, and his wand ignited. He gave a start. Bathilda had moved close to him in those few seconds of darkness, and he had not heard her approach. "You are Potter," she whispered. "Yes, I am." She nodded slowly, solemnly. "Have you got anything for me?" Harry asked, but she seemed distracted by his lit wand tip. "Have you got anything for me?" he repeated. Then she closed her eyes, and several things happened at once. Harry's scar prickled painfully. The dark, fetid room dissolved momentarily. He felt a leap of joy and spoke in a high, cold voice. "Hold him." "Excuse me," Harry thought. Vision strangely doubled as he felt the connection take hold, even as he stayed put in his body. "I can hear you, you know. I'm trying to concentrate on something. Can we do this later?" "Oh, of course, Harry," Voldemort purred happily. "We'll talk soon." Harry went back to his conversation, running a hand through his hair in the vain hopes it would allow him to concentrate. Carefully, he concentrated on Dumbledore, on his parents, those memories so close to the surface. Occluding felt harder than usual, as if a heavy presence pressed against his mind. Harry really shouldn't have been surprised to find himself wrestling a giant snake, and yet he was. "She's a Horcrux," he reminded himself as he failed to get any air and shout, failed to do anything. A Horcrux. Have to. He was flying, Voldemort was flying, they were flying. It felt glorious, even as Harry was aware that his own body was somewhere back in Godric's Hollow, and he had no reason to be so happy. That was just echoes of Voldemort. "If I die being strangled by a giant snake, I'm going to find that a little anticlimactic," Harry thought at him. "Don't be silly, Harry. She's just holding you for me, just as I am holding your mind here so that you can't struggle." "Oh, goody. What shall we talk about?" Voldemort thought cheerfully as they flew through the chill winter sky, stars twinkling above them. "We could talk about how you manage real flight," Harry suggested, trying to hide his panic. "I've only managed a bit of hovering." "Oh, it's a matter of raw power and will, not anything so simple as a charm. You probably have the strength for it, but I'm sorry, my dear, you are unlikely to have much opportunity for practice in the near future." "I'm not your dear. I hardly think this is the best time to antagonize me, based on my choice of language, Harry. Forgive me for being in a bit of a bad mood." "Of course you're forgiven. You've given me a Christmas present, after all." Harry was silent and enjoyed the sensation of flight. There was a strange sensation, as if hearing Voldemort's mental voice from far away, and then Harry felt Voldemort's anger press painfully against his mind. "Stop that," Harry thought briskly. "You'll burn yourself on my shields and fall out of the sky, and while that would be pretty funny, I don't know what it would do to us for both of us to be unconscious." "As if that would happen." "Quirrell died by burning," Harry countered. "You really should count that as your first murder, Harry," Voldemort commented venomously. "Precocious, starting at 11. "Well, it's probably your influence. How had Snape put it? You can't be good for a developing mind. And yet here you remain, stubborn and cheeky." "That's covered in the prophecy," Harry offered. "Not that I'm telling you what it is, but it does make the whole thing make more sense." "You are being deliberately obnoxious." "Of course, I can't do anything right now but distract you. Did we get away?" Harry fell silent at the burning cold tone, the murderous intent. They were striding into the fetid house, up the stairs, through a broken staircase and smashed furniture. They knelt by a giant snake with a slashing wound down her side, and cast spells in impenetrably quick succession, cleaning and binding and covering the wound, their anger cold and all-encompassing, their memories drawn back to another night when everything had gone wrong. "You have the sword of Gryffindor," Voldemort thought in a very quiet hiss. "Master," Nagini hissed. "Silence, Nagini." The snake fell silent, tongue licking the air fitfully. Harry felt something dreadfully like sympathy, as Voldemort rested a hand on her dry scales and seemed to be gathering his thoughts. This, Harry thought, was the closest Voldemort came to love, this love of self outside of self. He loved Nagini because Nagini was him. Harry, what were you doing here? Harry only had a few seconds to think, and he thought these things in quick succession. At all costs, he must not let Voldemort know they were hunting Horcruxes. Voldemort was a walking lie detector. He had to tell almost all of the truth. I thought she could tell me something about Dumbledore, he thought carefully. Dumbledore never talked about himself, and the story about his sister was, I was. They were still kneeling by Nagini's side, motionless as any snake ready to strike. I noticed a picture of the handsome man from the wand-maker's vision downstairs, Harry offered. Who is he? That got them up, standing abruptly and sweeping down the broken stairs to stare at the recently dusted photograph. Gellert Grindwald, Voldemort, it must be. I don't understand. They were allies until Dumbledore betrayed him. They were, yes. Perhaps this was not a waste of my time after all. Great, Harry thought to himself dryly. At least Voldemort seemed distracted. To answer your question, Harry thought grumpily, I was visiting my parents' graves. I hadn't before. Ah, Christmas sentiment. Well, I did think you might. They climbed the stairs again and looped Nagini around their neck like a familiar, comfortable scarf. Can I go back now? Harry asked. My friends will be worried. I have another errand to run tonight, so yes. How does that phrase go? Merry Christmas, Harry. Merry Christmas, you. Harry fell into sleep, with Voldemort's cold laughter echoing in his ears. That night they dreamed of Harry's parents' murder and Voldemort's death. In the darkness of their shared sleeping mind, after the last green spell had rebounded, Harry offered, let's never visit Godric's Hollow again until the war is over. And they said nothing more to each other that night. Harry woke with the dawn, to Hermione's concern, Draco white-faced and grim, a broken wand and Ron. At least something had gone right yesterday. Chapter 140, The Virtues of Imprudence. So, let me get this straight, Harry said, over a small metal cup of tea a few minutes later, looking out at the chill dawn light and feeling the chill in his bones. Hermione went upstairs and threw curses at Nagini, who let me go. One smashed the window, attracting the attention of Draco and Ron, who were both lurking around like lurkers. My wand smashed in the confrontation, and Ron drew the sword of Gryffindor, which he used to nearly take Nagini's head off, but his snakiness turned up and you all scarpered. Right, mate, Ron said, looking drawn and guilty and red-haired and wonderful. And amidst all of it, Harry asked. You were busy, Draco said tightly, mumbling in snake. Harry froze for a second. Well, I guess it's too bad about my wand, Harry said immediately. We'll have to get in touch with Ollivander, huh? You were busy mumbling in snake, Harry, Draco continued inexorably, because he wouldn't feel guilty about setting his mother on fire, the git. You said it wasn't Anishu anymore. Well, said Harry, who had said that and might have been exaggerating a little bit. Weren't one giving me the lectures on the power of friendship to defeat evil, and not hiding things from friends, Potter? Asked Draco. I did do that, Harry allowed. 3 times, Draco hissed, and I put up with it because I thought you had some sort of absurd secreto in part, but you're just mucking about. Calm down, mate, said Ron, and since when was Ron that tall? I am not your mate, Draco shouted, and then paused, panting. I'm sorry, Harry, said Hermione, about your wand. We can try to repair it, can't we? Harry asked, abruptly tired and scared just as he could see the rest of them were. He'd rather been counting on his wand and the twin cores with Voldemort. They tried to repair it. They failed. Life had its way on keeping rushing onwards. There was Gellert Grindwald to discuss, after all, and how he might be connected to Voldemort's project. There was the biography of Dumbledore to read and marvel, and ignore Draco's sniff. Draco's sulking was reassuringly normal, but Harry couldn't muster up his normal humor about it. Without a wand, even his pockets seemed useless, just clinking, taunting things full of secrets he couldn't access. He wasn't proud of yelling at Hermione, but in the end it was good to talk to Hermione about Dumbledore. All the weird, mixed-up feelings about finding out that all his adult role models had had their brushes with the dark, and the urge to conquer the world came pouring out, and he was left empty. Washeth weird one, that he'd never looked at one single thing and gone, I would like to conquer that. That wasn't a potions textbook. Hermione hugged him. You're not the weird one, she assured him tearfully. You're a unicorn. And then Harry was laughing and crying, and he was glad Ron and Draco were off somewhere and letting Hermione handling talking about feelings. It was okay to break down a little in front of Hermione somehow. It was okay. They did have a couple days to figure out their next steps and talk. Ron had, it turned out, been hopping around the country rescuing people and playing knight-errant, first with one set of refugees, and then others, muggle-born, keeping one step ahead of the Snatchers, though the Snatchers had lightened up in recent weeks. Harry and Draco shared a glance and did not share their part in that, but after that, Draco stopped hopping on Harry about his keeping of secrets. He'd gone to Grimmauld Place, but heard a voice that sounded like Lucius Malfoy and Scarpard, much to Harry's tired chagrin. They're all being shoved into Azkaban, Ron said darkly, staring at their little jar of blue fire with a grim look on his face. He looked older, somehow, compared to just a few months ago. And they don't live long there, I don't think. Hermione and I were talking about breaking into Azkaban, Harry commented. Not seriously, but we'll have to do it sometime, won't we? Don't be absurd, said Draco from the other side of the fire. Draco still hadn't forgiven Harry, even if he'd stopped being snippy about secrets. I'm not, Harry said shortly. It's just something to think about. It's full up on Dementors and worse things, Ron said. Don't know how Sirius did it. Turned into a dog and ran, I think, said Harry. It's on an island in the middle of the sea, Ron objected. Can't have just swum the whole way, can he? I don't know, Harry said defensively. I haven't asked, have I? Not something you just bring up over dinner, is it? Guess not, Ron said. It would be a good thing to do, Hermione said, something Harry distrusted in her casual tone. If they're locking up Muggleborn. The Death Eaters did it a few times, and that was with more Dementors. It would distract them. Everyone else is supposed to be distracting them from us, Draco objected. Who cares about some Muggleborn when we have a war to fight? Harry, Hermione, and Ron shared glances. Hermione and Ron's looks seemed to suggest that Draco was his bright idea, and he could deal with this. So, about the power of friendship, Harry started, and ducked as Draco threw a rock at his head. The power of friendship, Harry continued, straightening up again to Draco's glare, encompasses all mankind. You can't just turn it off and on for some people or other people. It's about, what's the word? Empathy, Hermione added helpfully. Empathy, Harry continued, picking up his sentence. So we care about people locked up going mad because they're locked up going mad and they don't deserve to. It doesn't matter if it's prudent. That's what Voldemort had thought in that dream memory of murdering Harry's mother. He hadn't needed to kill her, it had just seemed prudent. Harry was never, ever going to be a prudent person, not if it killed him. He rather bore a grudge against the entire concept at this point. You're all crazy, Draco said flatly, and I am having nothing to do with you. We've got the magic sword on our side, Harry pointed out easily and imprudently, and the power of friendship. You're doing this to taunt me, but I am a man of breeding. I will not be taunted, nor will I ever choose to believe that we should waste our time with the muck of Azkaban. Harry smiled easily and decided to take the opportunity to tackle Draco into the snow. Punching Draco's face sounded like a delightful way to pass the time. He nicked Draco's wand, too, while he was at it, despite Draco's hissing. There. Problem, as the saying went, solved. Chapter 141. Spoilers. Despite his and Draco's attempts to pull each other's hair out in an adult and manly fashion, Harry found himself aligned with Draco by default, because Ron and Hermione, reunited, were engaged in some sort of odd ritual avoidance game where neither looked directly at the other, but each was constantly aware of the other, like a live wire. "Do you know what's up with them?" Harry asked Draco, who was busy being a cat and sitting in his lap rumbling grumpily. Draco hopped down to the cold, snowy ground and turned back into a human, eyeing Harry without favor. "You're so emotionally stunted, Potter." "Answer the question, Draco," Harry said, using Draco's wand to cast a wordless hover charm and float for a few moments seated in midair. Not flight, and not as smooth as his own wand. At least without his wand, Draco had ceased his particularly disturbing mouse experiments. "They're courting," Draco said flatly. "You do know what that is, don't you?" "Of course, I know what dating is. I've dated Pansy and loads of people. What about you?" Professor Snape said I had to choose between potions and courting people. And you chose potions, of course." "Once I've got my mastery, I'll have time," Harry said, feeling obscurely defensive. "It's not like there's much time for kissing and things right now, you know." Draco turned back into a cat and sat on him again. Harry could tell this meant the conversation was over, but not what Draco's opinion of it had been. Sighing, he stroked Draco's ears and decided not to worry about it too hard. After all, he might die before it became a problem. Always look on the bright side. In the distance from inside the tent, Harry heard Hermione and Ron begin to yell at each other. If that was young love, he was almost glad he hadn't found a way to talk to Ginny properly before the war had crashed down on his head. Ron admitted to having a spare wand he'd gotten off some snatchers after only a day or so of laughing at Draco's face when Harry used his, and Harry switched to using the Blackthorn wand reluctantly. It didn't feel as friendly in his hand as Draco's wand had, and Harry had a nasty feeling it'd be better for curses than it was for making unicorn potions or hovering. Still, they all needed to be armed when going out in the world, and they needed to go visit the Lovegoods. No one was sure whether Greg would be there, and if so, whose side he would be on. Better, far better, to be on their guard, but they had no other clue about Grindwald's mark, and Harry was feeling the pressure of knowing how pleased Voldemort had been with his clue. There was also the possibility of talking to Luna about how they could sneak into the school. If someone in the school opened the passage of the Room of Requirement at the right time, perhaps, it would be safe enough, but still dangerous. It came up as they searched for Luna's cottage that Ron had not gone home for Christmas. He had been too nervous about missing Harry and too busy with his refugees, teaching them all the spells to hide and move and hide again. Just until you know who was dealt with, he would tell them, he explained to the group. They'd be home in no time, with him and Harry on the job. "Did that work?" Harry asked, morbidly curious. "Better than telling them we were making it up as we went along," said Ron. "I see what you mean about this heroing lark, finally. It always looks better from outside, doesn't it?" Harry grinned, but they'd reached the Lovegood house, and it was time to put on his serious face. They knocked on the thick black door 3 times. Greg Goyle opened the door, and everyone held very still for a long moment. "Let us in, Greg," Draco snapped, voice low, cool, and absolutely certain that he would be obeyed. Silent, expressionless, huge, had Greg always been this huge? The Death Eater stepped back and left room for them to come into the house. Harry kept his new wand out and didn't turn his back on Greg. Hermione, Ron, and Draco did the same, Draco coming in last and pausing within arm's length of Greg. Draco's expression was very cold, very haughty, very empty. "Give me your wand, Greg, to avoid misunderstandings," said Draco. After a long, silent pause, but not that long if you knew how long it took Greg to finish a thought, Greg offered Draco his wand, and Draco pocketed it in a blur of motion. "Gregory," asked the querulous voice of Mr. Lovegood, "who is it? Friends or our friends?" "It's Harry Potter, sir," said Greg in a loud rumble, "and his friends." "Oh, ah!" Mr. Lovegood came in, looking much worse, much more tired than he had at the Weasley wedding. "We'd better have some tea, then." And despite Mr. Lovegood's shaky nerves and Greg's best imitation of a stone statue, they did indeed have tea in the cluttered living room, and they talked about Gellert Grindwald, his mark, and the Deathly Hallows. "Mr. Lovegood," Harry asked after a while, "where's Luna?" "Oh," said Mr. Lovegood, "upstairs. She was having a lie down considering. She hasn't been, she's been." "Considering what?" Harry asked, leaning forward. "Is she okay?" Mr. Lovegood twisted his hands together in his lap and said nothing. "Hello, Harry," said Luna's dreamy voice from the stairs. Harry turned to look at her and froze. She was wearing a blue silk robe spangled with stars and star earrings, practically normal for Luna. Her blonde hair was still that eerie, icy straight she'd borrowed from Draco's mother. And on her head, in a shade of blue matching her robe precisely, Luna was wearing a tiara set with blue stones. Chapter 142. Explosions at the Lovegoods. Twilight had come on while they were talking about fairy tales and thinking about invisibility cloaks, so it was probably just the light that cast Luna in shadows. Harry stood up, remembered to breathe, and smiled as if nothing was wrong. "Hey, Luna, I was beginning to get worried about you." "I thought you would," she said, and finished coming down the stairs to stand next to Greg, putting a hand on his arm. "That's why I stayed here, so you could find me." Harry's thoughts were a very quiet scream, and he ignored them with all the hard-won skill of his occlumency. "That's a very nice tiara," he said. "Can I see it?" "I thought I would show it to you when I first found it," Luna said, "but I'm not sure I should now." "Why's that?" Harry asked, casually going to look out the front window. Luna and Greg's eyes followed him. "It doesn't like you," Luna explained, "and I've been trying to make it happy with moonbeams and cakes." Harry turned to stare at her, and did not look over her shoulder towards the other end of the room. "You've been trying to befriend the diadem of Ravenclaw. One of Voldemort's Horcruxes, and she was trying to make friends. Hadn't she been paying attention to what happened to Ginny?" "Oh, yes," Luna said earnestly. "It was only logical." "Luna, you do remember what happened to Ginny?" "Yes, Harry," Luna said. "But I'm more worried about what is happening to Ginny now, and it says it can help. We do really need help, Harry." It was at this point that 3 stunning spells, aimed by Hermione, Draco, and Ron, hit Luna, Greg, and the irrumpent horn on the wall, which promptly exploded. Fragments of wood and paper and rubble flew in all directions, along with an impenetrable cloud of thick white dust. Harry flew through the air, then crashed to the floor, unable to see as debris rained upon him, his arms over his head. He heard Hermione's scream, Ron's yell, and a series of sickening metallic thuds, which told him that Xenophilius had been blasted off his feet and fallen backward down the spiral stairs. Half buried in rubble, Harry tried to raise himself. He could barely breathe or see for dust. Half of the ceiling had fallen in, and the end of Luna's bed was hanging through the hole. The bust of Rowena Ravenclaw lay beside him, with half its face, missing fragments of torn parchment, were floating through the air, and most of the printing press lay on its side, blocking the top of the staircase to the kitchen. A couple different white-covered figures were still moving around. One, Hermione, came to dig Harry out. After a few moments, the beginnings of spells from downstairs started to unblock the stairs. Harry coughed, dust clogging his throat, and started working on digging himself out as well. In short order, they were once again arrayed in much the same places in the living room, aside from Luna and Greg being unconscious, and the whole place being a pile of rubble. Hermione had stuffed the diadem into her beaded bag. "Mr. Lovegood," Harry said, since no one else seemed ready to talk, "what did Luna mean? What's happening to Ginny now? Oh, well, perhaps I shouldn't say. Luna wasn't sure it was right to involve you. Very busy you are, Mr. Potter. The Hallows, wasn't it? I could certainly see how the Elder Wand would be useful right about now. Mr. Lovegood, Harry said more firmly, tell me what's happened to Ginny, right now. She and that other friend of Luna's distracted the Death Eaters, as I understand it, Mr. Lovegood mumbled. While Luna and Greg went looking for that extraordinary, artifact. She said you wanted it. I do want it, Harry said evenly. Which other friend? Neville Longbottom, I believe. Poor lad, Luna says he never had much nerve. I imagine Azkaban will be quite trying for him. The bottom fell out of Harry's world, and a roaring beast came alive within him, screaming, "No, no, no." He was struck dumb, too tempted to lash out, to shout, to scream at Mr. Lovegood, who certainly was not to blame. Harry couldn't protect Hermione. Neville and my sister are in Azkaban, Ron asked, very heavily. Yes, yes, that is what I said, isn't it? Mr. Lovegood said rather haughtily. Terrible times we live in, terrible times. But I kept telling Luna, no good getting yourself killed going after them. Haven't we already had enough trouble? She has to think about herself, Mr. Potter, you must see that. Harry wasn't sure why Mr. Lovegood was looking at him. He wasn't sure what his own expression was like, but it seemed to make Mr. Lovegood quail. You better wake Luna and Greg up, Harry said. Take her wand, just in case. Hermione obeyed, a dust-white ghost with a rock-steady wand, and both were promptly innovated. With a great deal more energy to her tone, Luna said, Well, Daddy, I did tell you that Horn was unlucky. Harry snorted quietly and asked, All right, Luna. Oh, fine. I am feeling a great decrease in Raxpert activity. Harry translated that as less dark and crazy. Can you two tell me what happened? Or no? I suppose the most important part is what happened to Ginny and Neville. What happened to Ginny and Neville was, it turned out, much as Mr. Lovegood had explained, and the whole party migrated down to the kitchen by common agreement, for dinner and to avoid rooms with holes in the ceiling. There was dinner, which tasted like nothing and felt like lead in Harry's stomach. He couldn't escape the visual, Ginny and Neville taunting the Carrows, and Snape with a carefully orchestrated string of traps, not stopping even when they'd been sighted, running, not towards any safety, but just away, to give Luna the few moments she needed to search the room of lost things that Greg had told her about for the item that Harry had been careless enough to speak about. Where was Greg in all this? Draco asked, sounding far too calm on an evening when Harry's world was breaking into pieces. Because he couldn't go running off to save Ginny this time. He had a mission, but his thoughts circled and stalled. Neville confronting him about going to get the Philosopher's Stone. Ginny, hair brilliant red, flying on a broomstick. Neville in the relentless and focused. Ginny in the Chamber of Secrets, fallen, white and silent. Greg was off duty, Luna said, but he was on duty later when I came out of the room. Luna didn't continue, seeming content to eat her peas, sticking them to her knife with mashed potatoes. Greg, prompted Draco. Luna came out. Vince and I were there. He wanted to turn her in, so I killed him. Silence stretched, vast and cloying and awful. Mr. Lovegood knocked over the salt as he reached for it with a trembling hand. Well, said Draco, and Harry knew he was white-faced under his coating of white dust. What did you do with the body? Luna helped me turn it into a vase, Greg said. Is that okay? Draco pressed his hands to his face, eyes closed for a long moment, then opened them. They were clear, flat, and hard, like grey stone. Good job, Greg, Draco said. Very good job. It's a war after all, Huos and the other side. Thought so, Greg said, and his shoulders settled from menacing, looming back to their default slouch. Luna leaned her forehead against his shoulder, and Harry saw tears painting lines in the dust on her cheeks. He looked away. This evening could not get any worse. Ron put his knife and fork down and said, Right, I'm going to go get my sister out of Azkaban. None of the rest of you should come, but I thought you should know. Chapter 143. Jumping off a cliff together. What do you mean none of the rest of us should come, Ronald Weasley? Asked Hermione. Well, I mean, you've got to keep going with the war, Ron said, with an uneasy look at Mr. Lovegood as the most obvious person not to be told about Horcruxes. I've been useless so far, you don't need me. If you think for one moment that I will let you go off to Azkaban without me, I will set you on fire, Ron. Ron sensibly shut up. Harry did too, though he felt faintly cheered by Hermione threatening to set people on fire. It was homey. Oh, wait, that was being near a Horcrux. Never mind, everything was awful. But of course we're going too, said Luna. I've been researching for weeks. Did you know that it was founded in the 15th century? It has a very fascinating history. Eldritch Diggory. I don't need any help, Ron said sturdily. Do you even know where Azkaban is? Asked Hermione. It's in the North Sea, put in Luna. I have the most tremendous variety of maps up in my room. Harry found himself left downstairs as the group, chattering and arguing, tromped upstairs through the ruined sitting room to retrieve maps and discuss dark creatures. Did they think he wasn't coming? Not that he particularly wanted to travel to an island in the North Sea to fight Dementors, admittedly, but he followed them upstairs, Mr. Lovegood forgotten, and grabbed Ron's arm, dragging him off into a little corner of the hallway to glare at his red-headed friend. You know I'm coming, right? No, said Ron, you can't. You never let me leave you behind for anything. I'm coming. You aren't. You've got a mission. You've got you-know-who. The diadem was the last one but the snake, Harry said very quietly. It's almost over, and we have the sword for that. I'm coming, Ron. You aren't getting there without me. Sure we are. Luna's got a plan, doesn't she? The one she made under the influence of the diadem. Whereas I have Sirius Black, the only man to actually get out of Azkaban. So he knows some stuff about it, like where it is and how to get there. Defenses. You don't have to come with us to ask him that stuff. And yet I won't ask him without that, Harry said, feeling cold and like he'd spent the past 7 years spending too much time talking to Slytherins. I won't let you, Ron. You're joking. I care about them too, Ron, Harry said, trying for something smoother, gentler. Do you know what it would be like for me staying behind? I can't. Please, Ron. Ron shot him an uncomfortable look and went back to the discussion in Luna's bedroom. Harry followed the group example and took a seat on a corner of non-collapsed floor, accepting a history book of dark wizards and their lairs through the ages, and thought furiously about Horcruxes and Azkaban and diversions and hallows. In the end, Draco's absolute refusal to go on any daring rescue mission without Harry tipped the balance in Harry's favor. Draco's reasoning, he would admit to Harry in a private moment later, was stupid faith that Harry actually did have magical boy who lived powers, and Draco would hex Harry's eyebrows off if Harry told anyone. Draco, the only animagus of the group, was the one who'd be able to slip past guards without getting his soul sucked out of his mouth. As Luna pointed out, helpfully, with a 16th century diagram of soul sucking. Harry's point about Sirius being their best bet also seemed sound. The thing is, Ron said heavily, I can hear my mum now. She'd say that she can't risk losing 2 kids, that I'm the youngest and I can't be trusted with something grown wizards should be doing, that I was being selfish. Harry had to admit, he thought to himself, that sounded exactly like Mrs. Weasley. He had to wonder if the ministry hadn't fallen, would he still be tidily diverted by changing sheets in a safe house somewhere, rather than out fighting werewolves and nearly getting himself blown up. If we contacted the Order, Hermione said cautiously, they'd help, wouldn't they? Most of them would, Harry admitted, but I don't know that bringing more people would help. We're not trying to draw attention, are we? Just sneak in and out. The thing is, Hermione trailed off. The thing is, Harry asked. We keep doing this, coming up with little clear plans without complications, and then we don't have a plan for when it blows up into a big, complicated, well, mess. Let me talk to Sirius, Harry said, after uneasy glances had gone around the circle. He'll have some ideas. Hey, Harry. Sirius sounded tired, and Harry felt guilty. Not that he'd averse to Ped feeling guilty. They went through the normal routine of verifying their identities, and then Harry got down to it. Hypothetically, let me stop you right there. I don't really have much time tonight, Harry, so just tell me what you need. A way to break into Azkaban, Harry said, and tried not to feel hurt by the abruptness. Sirius was staring at him from the tiny mirror. It was very uncomfortable. Into Azkaban. Yeah, there's lots of people locked up in there. We need to get them out before they all go mad and die. Or die and go mad, no, definitely go mad and then die. Luna found some really awful suicide statistics. Harry, where are you? This is something we should talk about in person. Do you mean you want to knock me on the head and lock me in a closet? Harry asked suspiciously. Yes, I do mean I want to knock you on the head and lock you in a closet. Harry, this is crazy. They've locked up Ron's sister, Harry said flatly. He's going, so I'm going. You can know he didn't want to yell at Sirius. I need your help. They say you're supposed to count to 10 and calm down at times like this, Sirius said in a quiet, deadly tone. But I don't think parenting books really cover your teenager wanting to commit suicide via masses of dementors. Harry had nothing he could really say to that, and so he was silent. No, Sirius said, and the mirror went blank, empty, and dead. It had never actually occurred to Harry until that moment that he could call Sirius, and Sirius wouldn't help him with a problem. It probably should have. After all, wasn't Harry always alone with his problems in the very end? Still, he stared at the little mirror in silence for a while, before going back into the light and noise to tell his friends they were alone. Chapter 144, Dark Clouds, Silver Lining. You couldn't apparate to Azkaban. The nearest land to it was a jutting peninsula just barely closer than the rest of the coast, and according to Luna's research, made of low, rocky cliffs. Her weather report suggested that the weather would be snowy and miserable, and that broomsticks were their best bet. There didn't seem much else to say. Sirius, the most reasonable member of the Order about underage or nearly underage wizardry, had cut them off cold. They planned all the next day, despite Mr. Lovegood's pleas, and apparated to the nearest place one of them had been, a little northern market town. From there it was disillusionment, and shared broomsticks and quiet desperation. They touched down on the snowy cliff for a rest, right next to a mound of snow-covered boulders. Harry ran a hand through wind-tossed and snow-laden hair and looked out to sea and sighed. I've probably done stupider things than this, he told the sea. Not as far as I know, said Sirius from just behind him. Harry jumped just about out of his skin, whirling wand in hand. Sirius raised empty hands and smiled, eyes shadowed in the evening twilight. Behind him, the snowy boulder roused, shaking out feathery wings. I brought transport, Sirius asked, as Buckbeak nudged him with a huge feathered head. Forgive me. Harry tackled him, arms wrapping around the man desperately, and tried very hard to pretend he wasn't crying. I came ashore here, Sirius said, wrapping his arms around Harry and holding on tight. So I figured if you were going to go. That, Harry said, muffled by Sirius' coat, was almost as stupid a plan as mine. Not quite that bad, said Sirius gently. We don't have to do this, Harry. Sure we do, said Harry. Some things are worth doing, aren't they? I either did something really wrong with you or really right, but you're probably not my fault either way. Come on, let's talk to your friends. And Sirius wrapped an arm around Harry's shoulders, and they went to talk to Harry's friends, who were mostly covered in friendly hippogriffs. Draco, Harry noticed, was standing very still. You're not actually frightened of hippogriffs, are you? Harry asked him. Of course not, Draco said stiffly. which was Draco for very much yes. "Hello, Mr. Black," said Hermione. "I think there was some confusion. We almost left without you." "Well," Sirius said, "I had to fetch a few things, but I'm ready now. Hippogriff should get us there in a few hours, and then it's mostly a matter of casting enough Patroni. I assume we're having Draco and Greg play the part of our Death Eater overlords." Hermione nodded. "The Dark Mark should get us through as authorized visitors, as long as we move quickly. Dementors aren't clever." "No," Sirius said, "they're not." "Oh, of course, sir. I didn't mean to say that you didn't know about Dementors. Will you be okay?" "I'll be fine." That was how Sirius sounded when he was lying. It continued to snow lightly as they set out for the island, each bundled onto their own hippogriff, with an equal number of hippogriffs flying around them as part of the flock. The sea was dark and choppy far below, and looked very cold. Harry could really have used a dose of calming draught, but even simple spells like the summoning charm felt wrong somehow with this strange wand. Easier not to use it if he had the choice. Better to focus on the task ahead and not worry about his own mood. The island loomed suddenly out of the night ahead, a chill in the air that had nothing to do with snow down the back of your neck, a rocky coastline that was a darker line of black against black waters, and a tower that was, just for a change, in case you thought we were going for a theme here, black. Harry thought he might write a firmly worded letter to the newspapers about Dark Wizard's design sense. Really, hadn't they ever heard of dark green, dark purple, dark blue, dark red, even, just to go along with the blood and death theme? It was just Simulacrum. They landed on the island accompanied by Hermione's little otter and dismounted from the herd in a jumble of rocks on the shore. There was a narrow, clear path of black stone leading up to the blocky tower, still black, in between jumbles of snowy vines covering the slopes of the hill. To add insult to injury, the vines were black too. Sirius and Draco shifted, and Draco hopped up onto Sirius's shaggy back, a little white shape against dark fur. Greg put on a hood for the full Death Eater look, and Hermione and Harry attempted to look downtrodden and submissive. They started up towards the Tower of Azkaban, and this was still a terrible idea. In the end, it actually almost went well. They ordered the Dementors to show them Neville and Ginny, and they got Neville and Ginny's wands. Neville was pale and had red marks on his arms where he tried to take the skin off, but was able to stand and come with them. Ginny uncurled from her crouch in her dismal cell when Ron's terrier nosed at her. The problem was as they were all walking slowly back towards the entrance of the tower, as if moving slowly would mean the Dementors watching them and swirling slowly past wouldn't notice they were there. The problem was this. "Please, please, someone, anyone. Please let me out. I haven't done anything. Please. I didn't steal. I just want my husband Reg. He works at the ministry, please." The group ground to a halt, and silent glances were exchanged. Draco's ears were back flat on his head, but he didn't shift back to human shape to argue. Sirius seemed. If dogs could talk, Sirius would be saying, "I knew this would happen, and I am resigned to my fate." "Please, I'll do anything, please." She wasn't the only one screaming, Harry realized. It wasn't the wind. She was just the only one coherent enough to use words. "Right," Harry said viciously, drawing his wand. "New plan, cast on 3. 1, 2, 3. As a group, they cast their Patronus charms, and a stag, an otter, a terrier, a hare, a flare of silver mist, a kitten, and a horse appeared in blazes of silver light and charged. Harry had never much liked the concept of Azkaban anyway.